Hi, my name is Lieutenant Sarah Mercer, and today I want to tell you a story I never thought I'd share publicly. It's not a mission report. It's not about combat or medals. It's about something far more personal. A betrayal that cut deeper than anything I ever faced overseas even now. I can still remember the way the wind moved that evening, the way it seemed to whisper that something wasn't right long before I saw it for myself. Pine Hill, Oregon was always quiet at dusk. The maples along our street rustled like old paper, porch lights blinked on one by one, and the neighborhood dogs settled into their nightly routine of half-hearted barking. If someone had looked at the scene from the outside, they would have said nothing was wrong at all. But the stillness felt staged, almost rehearsed, like the world was holding its breath. I had just returned from deployment, duffel still on my shoulder. Boots still dusted with the desert that clung to you long after you left it. All I wanted, all I had been craving for months, was the simple sense of grounding that came from seeing my Mustang, the one I rebuilt bolt by bolt, sitting right where I parked it. It was the thing that got me through long nights overseas. The picture I replayed when everything else felt too heavy. But when I stepped out of the cab and faced the driveway, my stomach hollowed. The space was empty. Not someone moved it to the side empty. Not dad dash probably dash hose dash down dash the dash concrete. Empty dot, just blank. I stopped breathing for a second. My pulse surged so suddenly I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the cicadas and the distant highway hum. The cool air pressed against me as if urging me to step closer, to confirm what I already feared. No silver paint, no chrome glint, no soft tick of a cooling engine. Just the raw, naked concrete I'd stared at for years growing up before I ever had a car of my own to fill that space. My name is Lieutenant Sarah Mercer, 29 years old, mechanic turned soldier in the United States Air Force. People assume soldiers like me dream of medals or promotions. But my dream was smaller and louder. A 1970 Ford Mustang Fastback. The same model my grandfather used to work on when I was a kid, before his hands shook too badly to hold a wrench. While other kids played video games, I spent my childhood in a cluttered workshop in the back of our property, learning which bolts stripped first, and how to read an engine's mood by sound alone. My grandfather used to say, "Machines speak if you're patient enough to listen." And I listened. That Mustang became more than a car, it became a promise I made to myself. And after years of service, sacrifice, and every overtime shift I could take, I had finally made that promise real. Until tonight. My chest tightened as I stepped toward the garage, already terrified of what else I might find missing. But the truth waiting inside was far worse than an empty driveway. Because what I found next didn't just steal my breath, it unraveled everything I thought I knew about my own family. Before I discovered the truth behind that empty driveway, my mind did what it always did in moments of shock. It dragged me backward, into memories I didn't ask for but couldn't deny. The smell of engine oil drifted into my head, as though the past itself had followed me home. And suddenly, I wasn't in Oregon anymore. I was 8 years old again, sitting cross-legged on the cool concrete of my grandfather's workshop in Montana, watching him coax life back into a rusted-out pickup. He was a Vietnam veteran, his shoulders permanently stiff from injuries he never talked about. But his hands, those were steady, precise, reverent. He never treated machines like objects. He treated them like companions with their own histories. "Engines don't lie, Sarah," he'd tell me, tapping the side of a carburetor as if urging it to confess. "People might, but machines won't. They tell you exactly what they need." I think that's why I fell in love with them. Machines didn't judge. Machines didn't compare me to anyone else. Machines simply responded to care. My grandfather taught me everything: how to listen for misfires, how to smell overheating oil before it became a problem, how to rebuild something everyone else thought was hopeless. He let me hold tools twice the size of my hands and never laughed when I dropped them. While other kids collected stickers, I collected bolts and washers in an old coffee tin. And then there was the day, the moment everything changed. The moment that shaped the dream. I chased for the next 2 decades. We were cleaning out an old barn behind his house when he pulled away a dusty tarp. Beneath it, a shape, a sleek curve, a ghost of silver beneath layers of time. A 1970 Mustang fastback, paint faded but unmistakably proud. I remember pressing my fingertips against the hood, feeling the cold metal, imagining what it once was. My grandfather watched me with a softness that surprised even him. "One day," he murmured, "you'll have one of your own. Not this one, this beast is too far gone, but something like it. Something you build yourself. Something you earn." That promise became a flame inside me. And that flame carried me all the way into the Air Force, into 12-hour shifts on tarmacs, into places where sandstorms could strip paint off a jet faster than a grinder. Every paycheck I saved, every luxury I skipped, every sacrifice fed that dream. While other families celebrated graduations with gifts, mine celebrated my brother, Mark, with a brand new import when he finished high school. Meanwhile, I fixed my own beater in the driveway and learned not to expect equal treatment. I didn't complain. I just worked harder. I always worked harder. And eventually, I made it happen. My Mustang, my dream, finally became real. Which is why staring at that empty driveway felt like someone had torn out the final page of the story I'd bled to write. But the nightmare was only beginning, because someone in my own family had made sure that page went missing. And the first clue surfaced the moment I stepped into the garage and saw what had been left behind. The door to the garage creaked as I pushed it open, the same familiar groan it had made since I was a kid. But tonight, that sound felt wrong, like a warning I'd ignored for years. The air inside was cool, faintly metallic, and utterly still. At first glance, nothing looked out of place. The pegboard full of tools hung just as I left it. The rows of carefully labeled drawers, fuses, bolts, clamps, spare hoses were all closed. Even the fluorescent light above flickered on with its usual lazy hum. But the space where the Mustang should have been, it gaped at me like a missing tooth. That emptiness felt personal, violent even. I forced myself to walk deeper into the garage. My boots echoed on the concrete, and as I moved, I noticed something: small things, subtle things out of sync with how I left them. The creeper I always slid under the car with had been rolled slightly askew. The stack of microfiber cloths I folded perfectly before deployment leaned at a sloppy angle. And the charger station for my jump box, normally coiled neatly, was tangled around itself, like someone had yanked it free without understanding how to put it back. None of these details made sense. My father never touched my tools. Not once in my life had he stepped into this garage, unless he needed a ladder or lawn seed. He used to joke that cars weren't his language, and he wasn't wrong. So who had been in here? My heart hammered as I crouched down near the oil stain where the Mustang usually sat. Something glinted in the corner of my vision, a scrap of paper partially tucked beneath a tire iron. I reached for it, expecting maybe a receipt or an old note I'd forgotten. But it wasn't old. It wasn't forgotten. It was new. A torn corner of a vehicle bill of sale. My name was printed on it. Not signed. Printed. Forged. The handwriting, the sharp, slanted attempt to mimic mine, was unmistakable. Whoever did it didn't know how my E looped or how my signature dipped on the final letter. But they tried. They tried hard enough to convince someone who didn't look too closely. My pulse roared in my ears. Suddenly, the garage felt smaller, the walls too close, the air too thin. Who would do this? Who could betray me like this? As the question formed, My mind landed on the one person I had already sensed dread around, long before I came home, not my younger brother. Mark, the golden child. The one who had cruised through life on applause and open doors. The one who always seemed to need money, experiences, attention. And the one my parents defended no matter what mistake he made. I didn't have proof yet, but the truth tasted bitter on my tongue already. Someone sold my car. Someone forged my name. And someone in my own bloodline was responsible. And I was about to walk into the house and come face to face with all of them. Because when I stepped into the kitchen, the first words out of my mother's mouth nearly stopped my heartbeat altogether. The smell of chamomile hit me before I even turned the corner into the kitchen. My mother always brewed it in the evenings, a habit she claimed helped her keep peace in the house. Though tonight the scent felt strangely out of place, too calm, too gentle for the storm boiling inside my chest. She sat at the table as if nothing in the world had shifted. Soft cardigan, slippers, her reading glasses perched halfway down her nose. Steam curled from the mug in her hands. When she looked up, her expression wasn't guilt or concern, it was relief. "Sarah," she said lightly, as though greeting me after a routine day at work, "you're finally back. And, well, I suppose now's as good a time as any to tell you." My breath tightened. "Tell me what?" She didn't wait, didn't hesitate, didn't even flinch. "Your car." She paused to sip her tea, as if commenting on the weather, helped Mark do something wonderful for himself. He deserved a chance to enjoy life for once. My spine stiffened. "What did you do with my Mustang?" She blinked, confused by my tone. "Sold it." The words struck with surgical precision, clean, cold, effortless. My throat went dry. "You what?" She sat her mug down with a soft clink. "Mark's friends were all going on a trip. He only gets one youth, Sarah. He needed something memorable, something to lift his spirits. You have your career. You'll manage." The world tilted. Every deployment, every 12-hour shift, every night I cried into sand-soaked pillows. All of it dismissed in a single breath. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, my father entered the kitchen. He didn't look at me, only exhaled as if the whole situation inconvenienced him. "You're a soldier, Sarah," he muttered tiredly. "You make decent money. You can buy another one." I laughed. A sharp, involuntary sound that startled even me. "You sold the car I rebuilt with my own hands. The one I spent years saving for." My father finally met my eyes and shrugged. That shrug hurt more than bullets. I dodged overseas. Mark's footsteps sounded on the stairs before I could compose myself. He walked in with the smug confidence of someone who'd just won a prize. His sunburned skin, the woven bracelet on his wrist, the glow of someone freshly returned from a luxury vacation. It all made sense now. "Hey, sis," he said casually. "You're back early." I stared at him, every memory of sacrifice, every moment of being overlooked by our parents, every childhood slight, gathering like a storm behind my ribs. "You used my car," I whispered, "to pay for your trip?" He didn't deny it. He smiled. And that smile told me everything. He didn't feel guilty. He felt entitled. The betrayal was total. And it seared straight through the last pieces of loyalty I carried for this family. But the real twist, the one none of them saw coming, was that the Mustang they sold wasn't the Mustang they thought it was. Because the next words I spoke shattered every drop of confidence in their eyes. Their faces, my mother's calm, my father's indifference, and Mark's self-satisfied smirk blurred together into something almost surreal. I felt strangely detached, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart from across the room. But beneath that numbness, a sharp, cold clarity rose inside me. They thought they'd taken everything. They thought they'd outsmarted me. They had no idea. I straightened, letting the silence stretch just long enough for all three of them to shift uneasily. Then I said it, slow and deliberate. You didn't sell my Mustang. Three heads jerked up. You sold a replica. Confusion flickered across their faces, first disbelief, then unease, then something close to fear. My father frowned. What are you talking about? The buyer checked it over. It was authentic. That wasn't the Mustang I rebuilt in my grandfather's workshop, I said, voice sharpening. It wasn't the car I restored bolt by bolt. Before deployment, I swapped them. Mark stepped back a half step, color draining from his sunburned cheeks. You? What? Why would you do that? My hands curled into fists at my sides. Because Sergeant Donnelly, remember him? The man who saved my entire unit during the ambush outside Al-Hazim, once told me something I never forgot. Never leave what you love unguarded, in the hands of people who don't value it. I let the words sink into the sudden, suffocating silence. So I listened. There. Breathing grew audible. The real Mustang, I continued, the one worth every minute of my life, is in Donnelly's locked garage 3 states away. The car you sold was Major Thompson's replica, a perfect build he loaned me, so I could keep mine safe. My mother clutched her chest. My father's jaw tightened. Mark opened his mouth, then shut it, then stuttered. You set us up. I met his eyes, unblinking. No, I protected what was mine. You set yourselves up. Before anyone could react further, the front door opened. Heavy footsteps crossed the hallway, measured, authoritative. And then Major Thompson himself stepped into the kitchen, full uniform, eyes hard. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone froze the air. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, he said, nodding once. Mark, I'm Major Lucas Thompson, United States Air Force. The vehicle you sold was my property. The forged signature on the bill of sale has already been documented. My parents paled simultaneously. Thompson continued. Under Oregon state law, the sale of property you do not own, accompanied by a falsified signature, constitutes vehicle fraud and theft, punishable by fines, restitution, and jail time. My mother's cup rattled in her shaking hands. Mark looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. My father swallowed hard, unable to form a sentence. For the first time in my life, I watched the balance of power in our household shift clean. Swift, irreversible. My voice was steady. You didn't just betray me. You broke the law. But the consequences were only just beginning. Because the next phone call I received didn't just confirm their guilt. It exposed a new threat none of us saw coming. The silence following Major Thompson's words was so thick it felt physical, like a sheet of glass separating me from the family I once thought I knew. No one breathed. No one moved. Even the ticking kitchen clock seemed to hesitate. Then my phone rang. A sharp, piercing sound that sliced through the room like a blade. Every head turned. Unknown number. Out-of-state area code. Something in my gut tightened. I answered. Lieutenant Mercer speaking. A man's voice came through steady, clipped, unmistakably military trained. Lieutenant, this is Colonel Peter Holden. I believe you know why I'm calling. My heart lurched. The name hit me like a shockwave. Holden wasn't just any officer. He was known for being meticulous, uncompromising, and deeply respected. I'd heard stories about him while stationed overseas. Sir, how did you get my number? I managed. From a bill of sale, he replied. One involving a 1970 Mustang Fastback, supposedly yours. Except the signature doesn't match your service records. Behind me, Mark's breath hitched. My parents went rigid. Colonel Holden continued, voice cool and measured. I am the individual who purchased the vehicle from your family. And I'm calling to inform you that the paperwork contains multiple inconsistencies. In other words, a pause. Your name was forged. A tremor went through me, not of fear, but of confirmation. The truth laid bare by someone with no reason to lie. I'm assuming the vehicle was sold without your consent, Lieutenant? Yes, sir, I said, jaw tightening. Without my knowledge, permission, or signature. He exhaled heavily. Then you should know I've already contacted legal services for guidance. Fraudulent transfer of property, forgery, misrepresentation. Your family is in significant legal jeopardy. Across the table, my mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father sank into a chair like all the air had been pulled from the room. Mark's knees wobbled. But Holden wasn't finished. One more thing, he added. During the handover, I noticed several problems with the documentation your family provided. Whoever attempted the forgery didn't know what they were doing. It's sloppy, and that makes things straightforward. The implication was unmistakable. Prosecution would be easy. Sir, I said quietly, thank you for calling. I'll cooperate fully. I expected as much, Lieutenant. I'll be in touch. The line clicked dead. The kitchen felt colder when I lowered the phone. My mother whispered, voice trembling. Sarah, please. We didn't understand what we were doing. My father rubbed his temples, defeated. We can fix this. We'll find the money. We'll talk to him. This doesn't have to get worse. But it was already worse. Because Mark, who had been silent until now, finally exploded. You're all acting like I'm the villain, he shouted, face red, eyes wild. You always blame me. Dad loves me more, just admit it, Sarah. Admit that you're jealous I get attention. His outburst cracked through the room like lightning. And in that moment, everything we had tiptoed around for decades came crashing into the open. But nothing prepared them for what I demanded next, because I wasn't just seeking justice. I was seeking accountability. Top of 4 Mark's outburst didn't surprise me, not really. It was the same familiar cry he'd used since childhood, the same shield he hid behind whenever he needed to twist the narrative. But this time, something inside me snapped. Not in rage, not in grief, in clarity. I'd spent my entire life absorbing blame to keep the peace. Tonight the peace could burn. I stepped closer, my voice low but razor sharp. Jealous? Mark, do you have any idea what I've survived while you've been carried through life like royalty? He flinched. Good. You think I'm jealous of Dad buying you a car when I had to rebuild mine from scrap? Jealous of you slacking your way through school while I worked 2 jobs to enlist? Jealous of vacations you didn't earn, parties you didn't pay for, mistakes you never faced consequences for? My father winced. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. But Mark just kept shaking his head, stuck in the same loop, refusing to see the truth. I didn't let up. While you were partying, I was learning to triage wounded airmen in the middle of a sandstorm. He swallowed. While you were crashing the first car they bought you, I was flying into combat zones. His shoulders sagged. And while you were sipping cocktails on a beach with my car paying the bill, I was risking my life to protect people I'd never even met. Silence, the kind that strips a room clean. Major Thompson stepped forward slightly, his presence grounding me. Sergeant Donnelly, who had slipped in quietly behind him, crossed his arms and watched Mark with eyes that missed nothing. Enough games, I said. All of you sit down. My parents obeyed immediately. Mark hesitated, but even he knew better than to challenge the atmosphere in that room. I continued, steady and unflinching. You will repay every cent of that sale. All of you. I don't care how long it takes. Loans, selling jewelry, extra shifts, whatever you must do. And you'll do it legally. My mother whispered, we. We will. I promise. I nodded once. Good. Because Colonel Holden is already preparing a formal claim. If you don't repay him, he can press charges. If he presses charges, you could face felony charges. All three of you. Mark's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Finally, he croaked, What do we do? You take responsibility, I said. Starting now. But I wasn't finished. I pulled a document from my duffel, one I had written years ago but never used. A drafted no-contact financial boundary agreement, listing that no one in my family could access or make decisions about my assets ever again. You're all signing this tonight. Then it'll be notarized. My father looked like someone had dropped a weight onto his chest. My mother cried softly. Mark stared at the floor, face hollow. This was the first time any of them had been forced to face consequences. And it wouldn't be the last. Because what happened in the months that followed didn't just change them. It changed everything about the way I saw myself. And the life I chose next. The weeks that followed felt strangely quiet, like the world was adjusting to a new balance it had never experienced before. There were no screaming matches, no slammed doors, no frantic attempts to manipulate the situation. Instead, a heavy, humbled stillness settled into the house, the kind that comes only after truth has blown through, like a storm, and rearranged everything in its path. The restitution process began immediately. My father, who had spent his entire life working just enough to maintain comfort, took on extra shifts at the hardware store. I saw the exhaustion in his shoulders the first time I stopped by. But for once, he didn't avoid my eyes. He simply nodded. A silent acknowledgement that he was finally doing something he should have done long ago. Taking responsibility. My mother began selling her jewelry pieces she had collected over decades. I expected bitterness from her, maybe resentment. Instead, she surprised me. One evening she approached me in the driveway, hands trembling as she held out a small velvet box. Inside was my grandfather's old wristwatch. I should have protected you better, she whispered. This belonged to the man who taught you to love engines. It should stay with you, not in a drawer with the things I kept for comfort. For a moment, all I could do was stare at it, at the worn leather strap, at the faint scratches along the silver rim. My throat tightened. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. And Mark changed the most. With no money left and no one willing to enable him anymore, he was truly forced to work for the first time in his life. His arrogance faded quickly when he realized how expensive the world actually was, without someone else footing the bill. One night, I found him sitting on the porch steps, head in his hands. I messed up, he said quietly, voice stripped of ego. I thought everything would just work out for me, like it always did. I never thought about what it cost you. For the first time, I believed him. Maybe not fully. Maybe not forever. But it was a crack in the armor. And that was something. As for me, my life opened in ways I never expected. The real Mustang, still untouched in Sergeant Donnelly's garage, came home to Oregon with me one crisp morning. The moment I turned its key, the engine roared alive, not as a symbol of pain or betrayal, but as something reclaimed. Something earned twice over now. I drove the coastal highways for hours, sunlight glinting off chrome, wind tearing through my hair, the world stretching endlessly ahead. For the first time, the road didn't feel like an escape, not like a beginning. This wasn't just about getting my car back. It was about reclaiming myself, the woman I'd fought to become, both at home and overseas. And as I sped along the cliffs, ocean glittering below, the Mustang's growl became the one truth that had carried me through every battle. I am no longer living in anyone's shadow. I am my own force, my own fire. And if you've come this far, tell me, What would you have done in my place? If you like my story, please like this video. Subscribe channel and comment below what kind of story you like this. I will find for you real stories.